Hi, fancy meeting you here. Welcome back to the Lost and Found podcast, the space where we're figuring things out in real time, together. I'm your host, Carmen Vit, and today I want to start off by saying thank you. I just got a notification that the Lost and Found podcast is currently ranked in the top 3 of all self-improvement and educational podcasts in South Africa. The top 3. This podcast is a month old. I cannot even believe it. We're also ranked in the top 50 of all podcasts listened to by South Africans. And we're currently the number 1 podcast listened to in Turks and Caicos. So random, but thank you, Turks and Caicos. We're in the top 50 for self-improvement in Argentina, Denmark, currently I think top 100 for Germany and the UK. The support you've shown me, the love for the podcast, the community that we're building, it is something that truly makes me excited every single day to wake up, create content like this, build this community, and it's all thanks to you, to the listeners, for sharing, so thank you. And speaking of community, today's topic really hits home for so many people, but especially people in their 20s. People who are in transition. Maybe you're starting at a new school, you're starting university, you just left university and you moved cities, or you're starting a new job and you're feeling lonely. You're feeling disconnected, like you don't have your people around you. Something is off. And I've been getting a lot of DMs and messages, people asking me, how do they deal with this feeling? So let's talk about it. Let's talk about loneliness. Not the aesthetic kind, not the I just lit a candle and I'm in the bath and, self-care, not that kind. The real gut punch, heart-wrenching kind. Because loneliness isn't cute. It hums under your skin while you're at dinner, but you still feel like you're miles away, you're not connecting to the people around you. It makes you feel alone in a crowded room. That feeling when you wake up and you feel an itch, you feel like something is wrong, but you don't even know who to call at that point. Loneliness isn't always loud. Sometimes it's slippery and subtle and it lives within us. It's this quiet disconnection from the world and from other people, but also oftentimes from ourselves. But what does it feel like? How does it show up in our bodies? What are the different forms of loneliness? Because people feel lonely in different circumstances all over the world in different ways. And the different types of loneliness, it really points towards different things that you need. So I think the first step is actually figuring out for yourself, what is loneliness and what is it showing you about what you need in your life? Firstly, I want to read to you things that people wrote throughout history about loneliness. And a lot of this comes from philosophers or from the eternal lonesome souls, the poets. And listen to this and realize that you are not the first person to feel this. Our generation is by no means the first ones to feel disconnected from ourselves. Okay, Charles Bukowski, a German-American poet, writer from the mid-1900s, he wrote, "When nobody wakes you up in the morning, and when nobody waits for you at night, and when you can do whatever you want, what do you call that? Do you call it freedom, or do you call it loneliness?" Anne Sexton, who won the Pulitzer Prize for poetry, she was writing in like the 60s up until the 80s. She wrote in her book, A Self-Portrait in Letters, "I feel unspeakably lonely, and I feel drained. It is a blank state of mind and soul, and I cannot describe to you, as I think it would not make any difference. Also, it is a very private feeling I have, that of melting into a perpetual nervous breakdown. I am often questioning myself what I further want to do, who I further wish to be. Which parts of me exactly are still functioning properly? No answers, darling. None at all." Further, very famous Japanese writer Haruki Murakami, still writing today, he wrote in his book Norwegian Wood, "Loneliness is not just the absence of people, it is the absence of purpose, the absence of meaning. Yuan Hari, a British writer who wrote in the early 2000s, he said, loneliness is not the physical absence of other people. It's the sense that you're not sharing anything that matters with anyone else. Okay, there's a lot to unpack there. The first thing I want you to realize when you listen to all of this is that people of all ages, all generations, all over the world, they have felt alone. It's normal. It's human. It's not something to punish yourself for. It doesn't mean you're broken or strange or different. Everyone feels like this. Even the most popular person you know, they also get lonely. So what are the different types of loneliness? The first type is when you're surrounded by other people, but you feel a lack in connection. You don't feel seen or appreciated. You feel like you're not sharing anything meaningful with other human beings. Maybe you feel like you're the one in the group that is always dispensable. You're always the friend, but never the best friend. You feel like you don't have that person or that group of people that are really so close to your heart. I remember growing up, I never had this really tight-knit group of friends. You know the thing that you see in the movies? Like 4 or 5 or maybe even more best friends, and they all love each other equally and they do everything together. I never had that. I had 1 or 2 close friends that I hung out with individually, but I thought that this idea of the friend group was either a myth or something was wrong with me. I wouldn't say that I necessarily felt lonely growing up. I felt very on my own. I was such a bookworm. I spent the first years of high school sitting in the library during breaks, reading and chatting with the librarian. But I wasn't lonely. I did like my solitude, but there was a big part of me that craved that deep emotional connection with friends. So there's that type of loneliness, the type where you're surrounded by people, but you feel like you're not sharing anything meaningful with them. You're not connecting in a real way. Then there's a type of loneliness where maybe you don't need connection. You just need to be around other people. You need to be in a social setting. When I'm solo traveling and I get little pangs of that specific type of loneliness, that feeling for me is I don't want to have a big soul searching conversation with someone right now. I don't want to go sit in the hostel kitchen and have 3 different conversations with 3 different Germans, you know? Where are you from? How are you? That type of thing. I don't necessarily want to engage in connection, but I do want to be surrounded by people. Then I will go to a cafe and I'll work at a cafe. I will go for a walk in a park. I love a city park. Just go sit there, read, people watch, see how they interact with each other. Get out into the world, see people. Go to a bookshop. Surround yourself with people so that you don't feel isolated. Maybe that's what we should call it. That type of loneliness isn't necessarily loneliness. It's isolation. The third type, which I think is the most prominent and the most bone deep one, we feel this disconnection from ourselves. That means we feel disconnected from the rest of the world. And so the point really is that loneliness is not a lack of people. It's a lack of connection with other people, but also, most importantly, with yourself. And so let's start there, that connection with yourself, because everything really flows from that. Firstly, I think that loneliness isn't something to fix. It's something to get familiar with. We should practice turning feelings of loneliness, which is a negative, sad feeling, into feelings of intentional solitude. Okay, let me read you this. It's the difference between loneliness and solitude. Loneliness is a painful, negative state. It is where we feel alone, cut off and estranged from other people. So we may feel excluded, unwanted, unimportant, or unnoticed. We can be surrounded by people we know and love and still experience feelings of intense loneliness. Loneliness feels like a punishment or a rejection. It is rooted in a sense of deficiency or inadequacy. It is something that depletes us, and it is imposed on us. Loneliness can also lead to self-rejection and even to self-loathing and despair. Okay, clearly, this is not something we want. We want to learn how to be alone without feeling intense despair. Okay, solitude is a positive state. It is where we are perfectly happy to be by ourselves and relish and enjoy our own company. Solitude can help us get in touch with or engage with our true self. It allows us to reflect on ourselves, others, on our life, and our future. And often solitude is a springboard for greater self-awareness, greater creativity, fresh insights, and new growth. Solitude is something we choose. It is something that restores and builds us. Solitude grounds us in who we are, and that enables us to reach out and give to others. Isn't that incredible? That is where we want to be, because there's such intense power in knowing how to be by yourself and how to be okay with that. But the question is, how do we move from feeling depleted and rejected to feeling empowered and refreshed and in connection with ourselves? So at its core, the question here is, how do you become your own best friend? Let me walk you through my theory. I've been solo traveling 2 years, which means that I'm spending a lot of time by myself. And I've had to get really, really comfortable with loneliness. And then I had to figure out how to turn that loneliness into feelings of positive, beautiful solitude, and how to really befriend myself, because I didn't want to feel lonely and depleted all the time, like I was lacking something. Yet I was alone. So how did I deal with that? How did I flip that narrative for myself? And today I really can say I'm my own best friend, but I put the work in. So let me walk you through it. We're told to treat loneliness like an emergency as a society. You know, if you're alone, you're feeling not okay, it's like, quick, text someone, call someone, post a story so you don't feel invisible, you know? Do something. Don't sit in the feeling, change the feeling. But what if it wasn't an emergency? What if we saw it as an invitation? Because here's the most empowering thing I learned. The moment you become content in your own company, that's the moment everything changes. Seriously. When you know how to take yourself out to dinner, to walk through a museum by yourself in silence, to travel across the world and sleep in hostels and drink coffee with just your own thoughts and your own company, there's something in you that becomes unshakable. There's a certain peace that comes from that. Because you've built the kind of inner world that doesn't collapse when no one else is watching. And that confidence, that peace, people feel it when you walk into a room. Because someone who's okay with themselves gives everyone around them permission to be okay with themselves too. Isn't that beautiful? So let me put it like this. You love differently when you love your own company. You don't seek people to fill gaps or distract you from your own discomfort, from your own loneliness. When you love spending time by yourself and you're okay by yourself, you seek people to expand what's already full. That's when love becomes a choice, not a compulsion. There's this beautiful quote by one of my favorite feminist philosophers, Bell Hooks, and she says, "Knowing how to be solitary is central to the art of loving. When we can be alone, we can be with others without using them as a means of escape." And I feel that deeply. Wow. But I didn't always, though. Somebody recently asked me, do you ever get lonely? You've been solo traveling for so long. How do you deal with that feeling? And honestly, yes, of course I do, but it changed for me. I had this very specific kind of loneliness in the beginning. It wasn't the kind where I necessarily missed socializing. I was meeting people all the time, I was staying in hostels, so everything felt very social. But there was this craving I had for familiarity. You know what I mean? To be familiar with someone. I didn't necessarily want to make small talk. I just wanted to sit next to someone who already knew me, who I didn't have to explain myself to or do the whole introduction conversation with. I remember I would be standing in front of something so breathtaking, watching a sunset over the ocean or sipping a glass of wine in the most beautiful place by myself. And I would think that I wish I could share this with somebody I loved. But then slowly, very slowly, as I did this more, as I practiced my solitude, I realized that I am that someone I love. I get to be the one who witnesses these moments. I get to be the one who remembers, who feels it fully, who claps for myself when no one is around. And that's beautiful because in the end, you are, or you're supposed to be, someone you love deeply. You're supposed to be a friend. So why not be able to spend time with yourself, right? And please don't get me wrong. I think I'm making myself sound like such a hermit. That's not the case at all. I love being social, obviously. Traveling full time is a very social thing. Staying in hostels is social. You're always meeting new people. In the beginning, when I was just staying in hostels, I never had that feeling of loneliness where I lack people around me. So that feeling of isolation, because I always had people around me. The feeling I felt then was that specific type of loneliness where you really want a deeper connection, maybe with someone familiar. But also, as I started traveling longer, not only did I realize that I am that person for myself, but also I started making really, really deep connections with other travelers or with people I met locally in a country because I started staying longer in places. So I opened myself up for deeper, greater connections and friendships. At the same time, where I'm at now, I work remotely, so I don't always stay in hostels anymore. I prefer like little apartments or maybe a room in an apartment that I share with other people. So naturally now I'm more isolated because I'm not staying in hostels all the time. So now my social interaction has to be more intentional. And that's when sometimes I feel that pang of isolation. I want to surround myself with people. That's when I go out to a cafe, I go out for a walk, I go do a Pilates class, or I join a run club. Something that surrounds me with people, not necessarily a deep connection that's going to come out of that, but at least I feel like I'm not alone in the world. But the third kind that we've been talking about, the kind where you feel disconnected from yourself, honestly, I've worked really hard and spent so much time with myself that I think that specific type of loneliness for me has turned into a very beautiful solitude that makes me feel connected with who I am. There's this line from the philosopher Paul Tillich. He said, "Loneliness expresses the pain of being alone. Solitude expresses the glory of being alone." And that shift is in the practice. It's not just a mindset shift, it's in the way you act. You don't just wake up one day and you feel at ease with being alone. You train for it. You train it like a muscle. How do you do it? You go on solo dates. You sit at the cafe without looking at your phone. Maybe you read. Maybe you're journaling. Maybe you're people watching. You're practicing having a conversation with yourself, holding yourself in that space where you might feel uncomfortable. You go to that yoga class, to that movie, that walk, you do it by yourself. When I was living in Cape Town, Sunday evenings were just for myself. So I would go out to have a really nice dinner. My favorite was Cliff Street House. I would journal or I would read during my dinner, reflect over the week that just passed. And then I would take myself out to a movie at the Labia Theatre, which is this beautiful independent movie theater in Cape Town, where they often show like old movies. And that was my perfect Sunday evening. I would go home, get in bed early, chef's kiss, do the thing that makes you uncomfortable. And yes, it will feel weird at first. You'll feel vulnerable and exposed. You'll feel like people are watching. But when you're in that moment, when you feel like somebody is watching you and maybe you feel judged, I want you to remember these three things. Firstly, they're probably not thinking about you. Most people are caught up in their own heads. They're thinking how others are watching them, how they are perceived. So they don't care about you. But secondly, if they are looking at you, it's probably because you look badass. Seriously, being alone in public and just being comfortable is so magnetic. People think that's really cool. I have this vivid core memory. I think I was 14, 13. I was in a restaurant with my family and I saw this. At the time I thought she was a lot older, but now I realize she was probably like 24. And she was sitting there and she was reading in this really nice restaurant, having a glass of wine. And I was just mind blown. I've never seen anything like that before. I thought she was the coolest person ever. So if you're sitting there and you're by yourself, you don't know who's watching. You don't know what little girl you're inspiring. Okay, so that's the second thing. If they are looking at you, they probably think you're really cool. And thirdly, if they're looking at you and they really are judging you, who cares? Why would you let a stranger's opinion dictate how you live your one precious life? You're probably never going to see them again. It literally doesn't matter. So who cares? Learn how to not care about judgment. Practice telling yourself in moments where you feel uncomfortable that what they think of me does not matter. All that matters is that I'm having fun. Besides, if they are judging you, judgment often comes from a place of jealousy. People see someone doing something they wish they had the courage to do, and it triggers something in them. So let it trigger them. That's their work to do. That's what they need to work through. Your work is to show up for yourself and have a good time. So I think the first thing that you need to address if you really feel like you're in a space of deep loneliness is your relationship with yourself. Get reconnected to yourself. Get curious about the things you like, how you enjoy spending your time when nobody else dictates what you need to do. And when I say spend time by yourself, it has to be intentional. It has to be like time you spend with a friend or a loved one. Take yourself out. Do not just rot in bed, scrolling, binge watching. That's not time by yourself. Make it intentional. Make your alone time a sacred act. And if you can, add some creativity into that. That's always something fun. Or start a project that you love that has nothing to do with your actual work. A little passion project. It will make you feel like you have a purpose. It will structure the time that you spend with yourself. So it isn't just airy-fairy up in the air, what do I do now? It will make you feel driven and motivated, and you will feel proud. And honestly, I know this is a big step, but for me, the number one thing that made me get so unshakably connected to myself was solo travel. It doesn't have to be full-time. It doesn't have to be 2 years or something crazy. It can literally be a few days, one town over, or take a train or a bus by yourself and go spend the weekend on the coast. And just get curious. See what it feels like. See how you are when you have to rely on yourself. There's so many reasons I can give you for why solo travel is just the best thing that you can do for your confidence. It's the most empowering, best gift you can give yourself just for what it does inside and what it does for your relationship with yourself. And if you're curious about that, go buy my book. I'll link it in the show notes. It's called Untethered, A Beginner's Guide to Solo Travel. And it's part handbook, part workbook, part travel memoir. Everything I know about travel and about life is in that book. Or maybe you want to dip your feet into solo travel. Maybe that's something you've always wanted to do. But you're a bit scared, you don't want to just jump into it. Maybe a group trip is for you. Then join my group trip. I'm hosting a group trip to Bali 6 to 16 December. I'm hosting it with World Packers, so it's part volunteer experience. We are going to be getting our open water diving licenses, and then we'll be going for dives to monitor sea turtles and manta rays and the coral reefs. So join me. I'll leave the link to all the information also in the show notes. Anyway, solo travel. Like I said, it doesn't have to be a big thing. Take the day, like one Saturday, and just go one town over. Maybe go to a theater production or go for a stroll through a market. in the next town and come back. It doesn't even have to be overnight. Treat your relationship with yourself like you would a relationship with a lover that you need to revive and you need to put some zest back into it and see what happens. Now, don't get me wrong, I love my own company, but that doesn't mean I don't also crave real quality connection. The human experience isn't either or. It's not, oh, either I'm this great poet who just spends time by myself or I'm this social butterfly who's always around people. You can be both. And here's the number one tip I can give you for how I deal with feelings of loneliness on the road. I act on the craving for social connection before it festers into a feeling of negative loneliness. I act on it. The moment I get that pang of, oh, I wish I'm around people, I wish I'm having a really nice conversation right now, I act on it. I do not wait for it to become something depleting and consuming. Instead, I treat connection like I treat my physical health, something that I actively tend to. I plan for it. I show up for it. Not in a desperate, needy way, but in a thoughtful, deliberate, intentional way. Because the friends you want, the deep connections you crave, they're not going to knock on your front door while you're in your sweatpants binge watching Netflix. You have to put yourself in the path of possibility. Start a hobby where connection is built in. I've talked about this before, having adult hobbies and how important it is. So join a dance class or a run club or co-working meetups, something where you will automatically meet people that have the same interests as you. Or join a book club. I recently started a Lost and Found book club. We're already underway with July's pick, so I'll link that in the show notes too. It's sadly all virtual. Ideally, you would be going to book club meetings and meeting people in real life, but this is a space for people who maybe don't have access to that. Maybe you're traveling around a lot. So it's really just a place for people from all over the world who want to connect with people who care about reading, who care about literature, and who want to marvel at art and language in a way that re-sparks your love for books. So join the Lost and Found book club. Anyway, here's what I've noticed. When you place yourself in the right room, the right people start to appear. Okay, but now what? Now you're in that room. The right people are there. How do you actually reach out and make friends? Because sometimes that's scary, especially if you're in that space alone. You're not there with a friend already. So I'm talking about you're not going to a yoga class with your friend. You're going alone. You're joining the book club by yourself. So maybe you feel a bit vulnerable. How do you then reach out to the people that are already there? Let me tell you what works, because honestly, after 2 years, I think I've learned a thing or two about how to approach people and make friends without making it weird. Let me give you an example. Friday night that just passed, I was working until late in this nice little cafe here in Delhi, and it's about 10 p.m. I'm still working. But as it gets later and the cafe is starting to close down, more and more people are walking past me up the stairs. They're dressed super nicely, and I start hearing music from upstairs. So I asked the waitress what's going on, and she said, oh, it's actually a really famous bar/club, but it only opens when the cafe is starting to close down. And it's Friday night. I don't have any other plans. So I think I'm going to go up. I'm going to have one drink. It's lovely, great DJ. I'm standing in line at the bar, and there are two girls next to me. The one girl's wearing a really beautiful dress. And I turn to her and I say, oh, that's such a beautiful dress. She says, thank you. I take that opportunity. I then ask her, what are you drinking? She tells me whatever she's drinking. And we just hit it off, conversation about, oh, what's good here? What can I order? They naturally start asking me where I'm from, what I'm doing here. Instant connection, two lovely people. They introduced me to their friends. At the end of the night, I had a whole new group of people that I met who were so lovely and who ended up inviting me for lunch the next day. So stuff like that, if you're open to connection and you approach situations with friendliness and curiosity, you never know what's going to happen. No overthinking, no awkward energy, just curiosity and warmth. The secret really is to read the room. If someone is sitting with their headphones in, they're journaling, they're reading, you can see they're locked in their own space, they obviously don't want to be disturbed. But sometimes from the body language, You can see how someone is reading, how they're watching a room, that they're open for connection. They're looking for someone to strike up a conversation. Maybe they just don't want to go first. People want to connect. They're just scared. So when you go first, when you walk over and you say to someone who's maybe sitting alone, hey, mind if I join you? You're not just being brave, you're giving them permission to be brave too. In all my travels, in all the cities that I've wandered through, I've never once had someone tell me no when I ask them, can I sit here? Most of the time they light up. They look relieved because you've done the thing that they were too nervous to do. Everyone's human. That's the not so secret. Everyone's human, which means everyone wants to be seen. Everyone wants to feel like they belong, and we all fear that we won't be accepted. But the most beautiful part of that is that you can give that to yourself first, and that will change how you move through the world. When you can give yourself the connection, the love, and validation you used to beg for from others, you stop needing it. And that's when it starts showing up everywhere. There's really nothing more magnetic than someone who's good on their own, who walks into a room with fullness instead of need, because that kind of energy makes people feel safe and free and curious. I think we can all agree that the most off-putting thing in the world, whether it's in friendships, in dating, even in job interviews, it's neediness. That clingy, I need you to choose me energy. People can feel that and it makes them want to run. But when you show up already full, already good on your own, you're not asking people to complete you. You're just inviting them to hang out, to dance, to chat, to connect for the joy of it. And connection then becomes what it was always meant to be. Not a lifeline, but a gift. I want to leave you with a few journal prompts. And I want to challenge you, take your journal out somewhere. Go sit in a park. Go sit in a cute cafe. Make it fun for yourself. And then answer these questions. Firstly, what kind of loneliness am I feeling right now? Am I craving connection with others or with myself? Am I missing familiarity, intimacy, or simply the presence of other people? Secondly, when was the last time I truly felt seen or understood? And what made that moment feel meaningful for me? The idea here is to understand why and how you feel connection, and then how can you recreate that? Thirdly, what do I need more of in my relationships? And why am I not giving that to myself? Fourthly, if my loneliness could speak, what would it say? What does it want me to notice, change, or nurture? 5, what parts of myself do I avoid being alone with and why? And 6, what's one thing I could do today to deepen my relationship with myself? Something that reminds you you're worth your own time. I want to leave you with this idea. Everyone is trying to be loved, trying to belong, trying to find their way. But when you know how to love yourself, how to be alone, how to treat your alone time as a sacred practice, how to change loneliness to intentional solitude, and then when feelings of loneliness creep up, how to act on that and intentionally connect with others in the way that you need most at that point. When you can do that, you become magnetic, not because you're perfect, but because you're anchored and you're okay with you. Thank you for listening along to this one. If you clicked on this episode, please know just the impulse to listen to this episode proves that you care deeply about you. If this stirred something in you, please leave me a review, leave me a rating. I read all of them and it really helps the podcast reach the people who need to hear it most. And send it to a friend who maybe needs to hear this. Share the love. And if you're the friend receiving this, please know that the person who sent you this loves you. You are loved, and you are worthy of your own time. Okay, that's all from me for now. I'm Carmen, and remember to get a little bit lost this week. That's where the magic finds you. Until next time.